We often think of ancient people as primitives, hunting for food and struggling to survive. Every example in this video demonstrates that the civilizations that created them flourished to such an extent that such massive undertakings were made possible by knowledge, coordination, language, planning, and a supportive society. Researchers used to believe that modern humans had a major development around 40,000 years ago, but evidence found in the last few decades shows that it developed gradually over hundreds of thousands of years across several human lineages. This female hominid walked upright 3.2 million years ago. While her skeleton shows some features in common with the apes she evolved from, there are several that are more in common with us. The spine connected beneath the skull to keep the head stable. Her pelvis was strong and wide to support the upper body. The thigh bones were angled to place the weight directly over the strong knee joints, and her feet were compact and arched and supported her full body weight with each step. This thigh bone from a Neanderthal shows that he too walked upright 1 million years ago. There is also evidence that ancient humans were expressing themselves. The zigzag engraving on this shell was etched by someone 500,000 years ago. This bone and the following one both have 21 lines etched into them. This one is from 400,000 years ago and has two groups of 7 and 14 lines, whereas this one, engraved over 250,000 years later, has two groups of 8 and 13 lines. Is it just a coincidence that 7, 14 and 21 are the number of days in the first 3 quarters of the lunar cycle, or were people using them as calendars nearly 500,000 years ago? These 10 spears are among the oldest hunting weapons ever discovered, and were found with animal bones and tools made of stone and bone. Tar was used as an adhesive to bind flint to wood for tools and weapons. These blocks of tar were analysed, and researchers found that Neanderthals used a surprisingly complex way to distill the tar from birchwood, using an underground environment that restricted oxygen flow. This beautiful figurine of a lion man was discovered in a cave in Germany in 1939. One can only imagine how it looked when the artist held it in their hands 40,000 years ago. These incredible paintings are 32,000 years old, and they were sealed away when the entrance to the cave collapsed 29,000 years ago. During the last ice age, the sea levels were lower and the area between the Netherlands and England was dry land. Between 10 and 7,000 years ago, melting ice sheets raised the sea level and rich fertile land became covered by what is now known as the North Sea. The cold temperatures and low oxygen levels in the sediments are preserved artifacts from the people who lived there in remarkably good condition. This harpoon made from bone was found by a fishing trawler in 1931. The sea rise also covered land in what is now known as the Baltic Sea. These scans of the seabed clearly show stones from a collapsed hunting wall that was used to root animals. It is 1 kilometre long and is now 21 metres below sea level. Around the same time, sophisticated stone settlements were being built in Turkey, Syria and Iraq, which fostered the emergence of plant and animal domestication. Many of the sites display similar examples of advanced buildings and human and animal symbols, proving that this sophistication was not a one-off but standard across the region. The findings show that the transition from mobile hunter-gatherers to settled communities was more gradual and socially sophisticated than once believed. Körtik Tepe is the oldest known Neolithic site in Turkey and was occupied for 1,500 years. Thousands of flint and obsidian tools were discovered at the site, as well as 500 stone vessels, many of them engraved with the images of plants, animals and symbols. Archaeologists also found thousands of stone and shell beads, as well as thousands of tools made of stone and bone. Karahan Tepe was occupied for around 500 years, and even though only a fraction of the site has been excavated, what has been found so far is astonishing. One of the most unusual features is this rock-cut chamber containing 11 pillars with a carved human head watching from the wall. This life-sized limestone figure is among the oldest known monumental human sculptures. Animals depicted include leopards, snakes, foxes, vultures, birds, and wild cattle. Göbekli Tepe was inhabited for an astonishing 2,500 years. Evidence shows that the people were hunter-gatherers who supplemented their diet with domesticated cereal. It is known for its large circular structures that contain massive T-shaped stone pillars. Many are decorated with scenes of wild animals. Sled ruts are found across Europe and in North and South America. Many archaeologists believe the ruts were formed by the repeated passage of vehicles carrying stone over soft limestone. They are often called cart ruts, but this implies the use of the wheel, which is unlikely for the time, and wheels are not suitable for supporting the heavy loads required to wear down the ruts. There are many details that indicate that these are man-made rather than natural features. Some routes connect ancient quarries with settlements. The distance between the ruts is usually about 1.1 to 1.4 metres apart, and the distance for each pair is remarkably consistent over tens or hundreds of metres. Although there can be many ruts in one location, each pair of ruts usually maintain their own parallel spacing. Some ruts are only a few centimetres deep, while others are over 50. From this evidence, it seems likely that the ruts were used to transport heavy stone from quarries to places of use. Each pair of ruts was probably dug out by a few centimetres to prevent the sleds with their heavy loads from leaving the tracks and to prevent the sled from splitting apart under the weight of the stones. As the heavy sleds were pulled along, the ruts were ground down, especially in wet weather. When they got too deep and the load was close to touching the stone between the ruts, those ruts were no longer usable, so new ones were cut and used. This would explain why there are lots of ruts in some locations. There are many examples of ruts going under the sea, which means that they were created over 10,000 years ago, before the sea rise at the end of the last ice age. Derinkuyu is an ancient underground city extending to a depth of about 85 metres. It has 18 levels and is large enough to have sheltered as many as 20,000 people together with their livestock and food stores. It is the largest excavated underground city in Turkey and is one of several underground complexes found throughout the region. It was carved mostly into tuff, a soft rock formed from compacted volcanic ash, which is widespread in the region. Each floor could be closed off from the inside with large rolling stone doors. About 12,000 years ago, due to the Ice Age and the high elevation, summers were around 25 degrees Celsius and the winters went down to around -10 degrees Celsius. The justification for the immense work involved removing approximately 500,000 tons of stone may have been that the temperatures underground are much more consistent year-round. The people could hunt and gather resources in summer and then take refuge in the underground city in winter. The Nebra Sky Disc was discovered with 2 bronze swords, 2 axes, a chisel, and fragments of spiral armbands. The Greek poet Hesiod described the role of the Pleiades for organising the agricultural year. When the Pleiades, daughters of Atlas, are rising, begin your harvest, and your ploughing when they are going to set. 40 nights and days they are hidden, and appear again as the year moves round, when first you sharpen your sickle. Because the lunar year is 11 days shorter than the solar year, identifying sowing and harvesting times using the cycles of the moon would be off by a month after 3 years. Fortunately, the relative positions of the crescent moon, Pleiades, and the sun can be used to accurately see the time of year, and this is how the disc was probably used. The top and the bottom of the disc represent north and south. The 2 arcs at the left and right represent the range of positions where the sun rises between the summer and winter solstices. The user can then see from the position of the rising sun when in the year they are. In spring, if the crescent moon appears close to Pleiades, the lunar calendar is off by a month, so an extra lunar month must be added, and this keeps the lunar calendar in sync with the solar calendar. Ishi-no-Hoden in Japan is also known as the floating stone because it has been ingeniously designed to look as if it is floating above a pond. It is surrounded on 3 sides by unprocessed bedrock. The stone rests on a hidden pillar beneath the water's surface, but the illusion is compelling and it gives the impression of something impossible made real. It was mentioned in a story around 700 AD, but there are no records of who constructed it or why. There are no inscriptions and no datable artifacts have been found. There are several huge stones at Baalbek that are much bigger than the rest and look different. The biggest 3 stones are built into the base of the Temple of Jupiter. They are approximately 20 by 4.2 by 3.5 metres and weigh around 800 tons each. Some of the cornerstones weigh around 600 tons, and there are also many other large stones weighing 350 tons. Quarrying these huge stones was an incredible task, but even harder would be transporting them. The placing of the stones would be even more difficult. Even getting them roughly into position would be hard enough, but these immense stones were placed exactly. Once placed, they would be almost impossible to lift again. So how were they shaped so accurately, have such exact matching sides, and how did they place them so perfectly first time? There are no equivalent stones elsewhere in Roman architecture. The granite columns of the Pantheon weigh around 100 tons each. The biggest foundation blocks found in other temples are around 300 tons. For reference, the largest stones moved and placed in Peru are around 200 tons. Furthermore, it is clear just looking at these huge stones that they are a different style to the others above. Everything about these stones indicates that they were already here when the Romans came and they built their temple on top of this already existing base. So, who did quarry, transport and place these immense stones? How did they do it and when? If it is true that these stones were already here before the Romans came, it is fascinating to think that a civilization before the Romans was more advanced in handling stones than the Romans were. The Osireion is believed to be the cenotaph of Seti I because it is located to the rear of the temple honouring him. It is built from granite blocks weighing around 200 tons. The precision with which these massive stones were cut and placed required a very high level of engineering skill. The combination of the size, finish and style is very unusual for Egypt. Many suggest that Seti I chose this location for his temple because the remarkable Osireion was already there. In 1901, the Antikythera Mechanism was found in a shipwreck in Greece. It is a hand-powered model of the solar system and is the oldest known analog computer. It could be used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance, and even took into consideration the irregular orbit of the Moon. X-ray scans show that the mechanism probably had 37 bronze gears. The gears mirror the precise movements of the Moon, Sun and planets. The largest gear is about 13 centimeters wide and had 223 teeth. Turning the hand crank would rotate the gears and change the current position of the cycle of the solar system. Machines with similar complexity did not appear again until the 14th century in Western Europe. The Barabar caves are a set of 7 precision-cut chambers cut into extremely hard granite. The stoneworking is extremely impressive, but they are so carefully designed that they are a statement of the mathematical knowledge of the builders. As you admire these remarkable caves, bear in mind that the stonemasons had to work using the light from flaming torches, and they did not have the tools we have today for checking levels, straightness or 3D modelling. Because these chambers have such symmetrical precision, any mistake cutting too deep would be irreparable, because the entire rest of the cavern would have to be cut more to match. They have extremely smooth, mirror-like surfaces with very few tool marks. The polish extends across walls, ceilings and around corners rather than just being confined to flat areas. Many features are symmetrical. Opposing walls are close to parallel, doorways are centered, chamber axes are aligned, ceiling curvature is balanced from side to side. Where walls meet ceilings or floors, edges remain well defined and polishing continues through these junctions. The rear chamber of the Sudama cave is close to a circular plan with a domed ceiling. Dome transitions smoothly into the walls, and remarkably the corresponding wall in the main chamber mirrors the curvature precisely. The smooth hard surfaces and symmetrical geometric shapes produce long reverberation times, strong echoes and amplification of chanting. Considering each of these caverns must have taken years to make, what important purpose did they fulfill? Why did they make 7 when even 1 was an incredible achievement? Who made these caves, and when? The rock ship of Masuda is one of Japan's most enigmatic archaeological monuments. There are no inscriptions, no related artifacts and no historical records about it. It is fascinating because it is not at all apparent what it was for, even though their design clearly meant something to the artists. What do you think the purpose could be? Near to the fantastic structures made by the Inca are vast numbers of carved rocks that seemingly have no purpose, but must have taken vast amounts of time and effort to make. These features were not reproduced in Inca walls, which indicates that these existed before the Inca, and they revered them and built temples and dwellings near to them. Some of these carvings are very weathered, so how old are they? How long had they been there before the Inca found them? These are clearly not the result of quarrying rock, as there would be no benefit in spending huge amounts of time finishing the surface. You can see that every flat surface and every corner has been finished with incredible care and skill. There are some flat surfaces that could have been used functionally, but there are many more that are at angles that defy practical use. These sloped walls and shapes must have taken months to carve, flatten and smooth. What justified this vast effort? Was this an artistic endeavour? A religious endeavour? By shaping nature, were the makers seeking to unite with the natural world or show their mastery over it? In 1992, 4 farmers drained the water of 5 small ponds in their village and found immense man-made caverns. 24 of these caves have been found so far. Despite China's wealth of written history, there are no surviving historical records describing who excavated them, why they did so, or when. Fragments of pottery have been dated to around 2,200 years old. Around 1 million cubic meters of rock have been removed. The walls, ceilings and pillars are covered with remarkably uniform marks, parallel bands about 60 centimeters wide containing parallel marks at an angle of about 60 degrees. If these were excavated by hand, the walls would be covered with random marks. There would be no benefit in the extra work making the patterns that we see. The decorative carvings are not original. The caves originally had no cross-connecting passages, even though excavating a doorway between them would have required very little effort. What purpose justified this incredible work? What reason is there for their wedge-like shapes? If these were not made by hand, what kind of machine made them? How sophisticated were the people who made them, and when did they live? The achievements that we have seen show that ancient civilizations were capable of astonishing feats, requiring planning, communication and support. Instead of assuming that ancient people were simple just because most evidence has been erased, is it time to change our perspective of ancient peoples to primarily assume that they were sophisticated, organized and capable? Let me know what you think in the comments.